Rolling.
Stephen, we're sitting here in this absolutely glorious hotel, and I wonder, do you really personally relate to a place like this?
Oh, do I ever. If I could will myself back in time, as our main character does, I would will myself back to a time in which living was gracious and slower. I live in Los Angeles. It's not as fast-paced as New York, but it's fast-paced. And I think that life was probably meant to be lived in the way that it's lived on this island.
What was it like the first time you came here to scout it for location?
Covered in snow and ice. Jeannot Swark, the director, and I came up to look at this island, I believe on the 19th of February in 1979. It was 12 below. I had never been in weather that cold. I had borrowed parkas from everybody that I knew and warm socks. And everything was covered in snow. The lakes were frozen. The roads were snow. The grass was snow. The hotel was snow. We walked into the hotel. They don't heat it during the winter. It was 25 below inside the hotel. But when we came here, there was a magical feeling. Most of the time in film, you have to really rely on your instincts. And when we got to this island, Jeannot and I looked at each other and said, we're home. This is where we're going to shoot the picture.
Were there any problems, though, once you got here and the work-a-day thing of making a movie?
Yes. The biggest problem we had was transportation, because they do not allow motorized vehicles on this island, and a movie company has to move with trucks. We have enormously heavy, large, cumbersome equipment, and the power packs to power the equipment. And these roads were made for horse traffic and bicycles and walking, and because of the enormous crowds that they have here during the summer, and we shot during the height of the season, we had to have a teamster driver ride a bicycle in front of every truck every time it was moved. And we also could not move more than twice a day. We would move to a location early in the morning before the first ferry arrived with the people coming over for the day, and we would have to stay at that location until the last ferry left at night, and we could move back through town because there's only one street, one main street here, and we couldn't bring big 20-foot semi-trucks through it. We would have killed hundreds of people every time we moved. So it was difficult getting around. The transportation was a problem. Besides that, it was an idyllic stay.
And the local people, how did they react to their island being used for a movie?
They had two very distinct reactions. The huge primary reaction was they were fascinated by having a movie made on the island. We all made great friends here with people who live here. They're wonderful people who live on this island, and they took us into their homes, and their hospitality was enormous, and they loved the idea of having a movie made here and to be able to see behind the scenes. And that was the primary reaction, which was wonderful for all of us. The secondary reaction was one that we all also understood, and that was they didn't like the idea of having cars on their island. And I don't blame them. If I lived on this island, I wouldn't either. And we had several meetings and talks with the Chamber of Commerce and the mayor and townspeople to explain to them that for just a couple of days, and that's all that they were here, to set up a contrast between the present and the past, we had to have some cars on the island, or else it wouldn't be the romantic fantasy that it is. Part of it does take place in the present, and most of it takes place in the past, and we wanted the past to be alluring and beautiful as romantic fantasies are supposed to be, and to achieve that, we had to have some modern devices in the present, and cars are certainly the easiest things to use for that.
And you were obviously able to placate the people then.
Yes, they didn't like it. They were very honest about that they didn't like it, but they didn't prevent us from doing it, because they did. We gave them the script. It's the first thing that we did, is we gave everybody that we were going to be dealing with the script so that they knew that we were not going to be doing anything that was exploitational, that they knew we intended to make an old-fashioned romantic fantasy, and they knew what we were going about doing, and there were no mysteries for them. So they trusted us, and I hope that they feel that their trust was worthwhile.
Have any other movies been made here?
In 1946, Esther Williams and Jimmy Durante made a film partly here on the island. Most of the outdoor scenes were shot during the winter, not during the height of the summer season. And I believe that almost all of the interior scenes were done on sound stages in Los Angeles. And as far as I know, that was the only other film that has ever been shot here at all, even in part. But I don't think this will be the last.
Stephen, if I may change the subject rather abruptly here, the actors' strike going on now, has that in any way at all changed the relationship between you and your actors, primarily Christopher Reeve?
Oh, not at all. Chris Reeve and Jane Seymour and Christopher Plummer are all good friends, and I'm a very strong believer in unions. Without unions, this business would be a very difficult business in which to work. What the actors are striking for, I may not totally disagree with, and I don't in all of the points. But as members of that union, Chris and Jane and Chris, both Chris's and Jane, are duty-bound to obey the restrictions of the strike. And we have talked constantly. As a matter of fact, last night, right before we showed the film here on the island, I talked to both Jane and Chris, and we were all very wistful that they couldn't be here, but I understand that completely. And our relationship is one that's very close and very friendly, and the strike hasn't had anything to do with it whatsoever.
What do you think is ultimately going to be the outcome of the strike?
Well, it will be settled. The movies will be made again. I'm really not as conversant upon that as people who are close to it. I understand the reasons for it, and from what I understand, the major problem in the strike, the actors' participation in the revenue from video cassette sales, the formula for that has been agreed to. And now it's a question of working out the details. And I would anticipate that very shortly it will be over. And I think we all hope that. I mean, everyone wants to get what they feel is owed to them, but our primary business is making films, and I think everybody wants to get back to it, the actors included. And it'll all be forgotten, as all strikes usually are, within a few days or weeks after it's concluded.
As a producer, Stephen, are you concerned that next it will be the directors and then it will be, you know, right on down the line to the
Well, that's
grips?
one of the problems, the major problems with the actors' strike, in that we are looking upon it as being a guidepost, which will then, when the Directors Guild contract comes due very soon and the Writers Guild contract comes due very soon, that it will be based upon that. It's a very difficult issue. The costs in this business have become enormously prohibitive. It is very difficult to make any kind of an inexpensive film, and that's why you hear these horror stories of $20, $30, $40 million films, which is a mind-boggling amount of, I mean, $1 million is a mind-boggling amount of money, but our film, which we used all kinds of restraints on financially, cost about $5 million to make, and that's just about as little as you can spend for a major studio film today. So we do have to be concerned about keeping costs down on films, and we are concerned about the director's situation and the writer's situation. The easiest solution to all of it is to make a lot less expensive films. Instead of making one $30 million film, make 6 $5 million films. Give everybody full employment. Therefore, you won't have to try in a contract negotiation to get in 15 weeks of work during a year, make 52 weeks worth of salary. If you can work 52 weeks, you can spread it over those 52 weeks, and costs will come down. What we need to do is get some restraint on ourselves. It's our own fault. We have to police ourselves, and if we do, the business will prosper. If not, movie theaters may disappear, and I think that would be a very sad thing for all of us.
Well, let's not even think about that, or we'll both start crying. Stephen, how nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Just leave it up there, right?
Yes, now, how do you want me to just turn this around?
Rolling. Okay.
All right, questions? Stephen, what was Mackinac Island like the first time you came here to scout it as a possible location? How did the local people react to the movie company being here? Were there problems involved in just the everyday business of making a movie here on this island? If I may just change the subject for a second, has the strike changed the relationship at all between you and your actors? As a producer, are you concerned that the actors will get what they want out of it, then it's going to go right on down to the directors and right on down to the grips, probably. Okay. Ultimately, how do you think the strike is going to turn out? Thank you all for putting up with my little... Is anybody else doing reverse questions now? Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
There for a while, I was